Alrighty. Should be alright. Everything should be good, I think. I hope. I do hope, honestly. Let everyone fill in, but other than that, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. It is September 14th, 2023. And we have a, obviously we've been talking about this same hurricane for what? About a week and a half, 2 weeks now? Something like that. My collar's messed up, by the way, so I apologize. But we've been talking about the system for a while now and how this could potentially get towards the United States and even eastern portions of Canada. And unfortunately, I had to take a little teeny bit of a hiatus. Lately, I've been feeling really tired, but regardless, I've been posting stuff like that. And I've also been trying to keep up with my college. So meteorology, stuff like that is, it's going pretty well, actually. I'm not done with it. I said I was going to try and get it done the day before it was due, which it's due tomorrow. So I'm almost done with all my quizzes and my labs. If I really have to, I'll touch it up tomorrow, but I'm going to try and get that done tonight. But the main thing that I want to try and get done more than anything is this live stream here that'll tell you guys all the latest updates from Hurricane Lee. Now, some of you guys probably have seen some videos or seen online or seen from media that Hurricane Lee is going to be moving up and it's going to be heading off towards the general vicinity of Cape Cod. And Cape Cod is definitely going to have to watch out. New England's going to have to watch out. And in my honest opinion, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia will have to watch out as well. As if it wasn't already obvious enough, we have the cone of uncertainty that is right in front of us from the National Hurricane Center. And I want you guys to pay attention to two things. Actually, let me try and refresh this image to see if they've updated it, and they have updated it, which is cool. Two things that I want you guys to kind of pay attention to. Number one is I want you to take a look at this right here. This right here is, it's still saying that it's going to be a hurricane upon Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, around 2 p.m., is when we could potentially see landfall as a tropical storm near Nova Scotia, specifically the southern side of Nova Scotia. So we're expecting landfall to be right around then. There's something on my tongue. Holy crap. What in the world is that? I ate something earlier and there's like something that's stuck on the side of my cheek. It's so annoying if you guys have experienced that before. I was trying to move my tongue around to try and swash it around. Nope, apparently not. But anyways, back to the topic here. The main thing here is, on the other hand, you see all these little kind of highlighted colors along the coastline. See that? And these are the active watches and warnings that have been issued across the area. If you're in a blue, that is a tropical storm warning. If you are in the yellow, that is a tropical storm watch. And if you are in the pink, which is here from coastal Maine all the way around into Nova Scotia, then there is a hurricane watch. Now, depending upon how quickly this thing deteriorates, especially as it moves up towards Nova Scotia, that'll kind of determine as to what exactly we could be dealing with upon landfall. So regardless, I think the main thing to watch out for is the storm surge. You guys can kind of see how we have these like black circles and then it turns into a white circle with an S. That's not, not by mistake. Instead, what that means is when it's encircled by, or it's kind of like a full circle, if you will, a full black circle, that means that it's fully tropical. But once you get towards the kind of open circle, a black circle more or less, that's kind of post-tropical. It's not really all tropical at that point to the point to where it's all rain and wind all consistently. It's more just wind more than anything. So it actually ends up becoming more of a wind maker as it gets closer to the coastline. And the thing about wind is, well, if it's still over water, remember how a tropical system spins. Every single low pressure system here north of the equator spins in a counterclockwise fashion. And so when we look at that, we can also see how the winds move and how the storm surge, how the waters and the tide can actually be pushed towards the coastline, right? It's going to be pushed towards the coastline. And that's the big thing here too that I also want to get across to you all, because look at this. You see how large this yellow area is? That's how far the tropical storm force winds expand outside of the center, which is this little X right there. And sure, it has the hurricane force winds in that little like reddish orangish area, but notice how large of a storm it is. It is a very expansive storm. And because it is a expansive storm, this is going to create a lot of storm surge across the coastline. So if we pull up our peak storm surge map here and kind of show you guys more or less for the United States, I don't think this does it for Canada, unfortunately. We would probably see an upwards of 3 to 5 feet of storm surge over along Nova Scotia, in my honest opinion. But you can see here with our peak storm surge forecast, about 1 to 3 feet extending from Long Island all the way up through Cape Cod and up to the border of the United States and Canada. So if you're along the coastline and you're along a flood-prone area, I recommend you get away from the coastline as this thing moves off in towards your general vicinity, especially as this gets closer and closer to Friday, because once we get over here onto Friday, once again, we're going to go back to this little image here. You can see by Saturday morning, still a little bit after midnight, this thing is still anticipated to be a hurricane. And if we take into consideration that's the position as to where it is at that stage in time, here is the current flow, right? There is the current flow of the tropical system. And a lot of this water is going to be pushed along into Cape Cod, and even it'll be pushed down into that, that northern side of Cape Cod. So something really interesting to watch out for as that continues to move about. I can go all the way up here. Let me see if I can refresh this and kind of show you guys. No active experimental potential storm surge flooding map? Really? That kind of sucks. By the way, I appreciate everyone for coming out and chat. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button down below. It helps us get this out to more and more people on YouTube. Yeah, they don't have that storm surge interactive map anymore. That kind of sucks. Earlier, we were able to see it and show it, and I was actually planning on making a video with it, but I just was feeling so tired last night from studying, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do a live one, try and interact with chat as much as possible. The one thing I can say, though, is here is the rainfall forecast, and once you become a post-tropical cyclone or an extratropical storm, once again, the rain starts to become less and less of a factor, and it becomes more of a wind maker. And this perfectly illustrates that, because over the water just to the east of Cape Cod, we can see probably an upwards of about 6 to 10 inches of rainfall possible in this orange area. But once you get closer and closer towards the coastline, you can see it starts to gradually become less and less. And because of that, some of these areas over here in eastern Maine, as well as in portions of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, could probably see 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, which is not a whole lot at all. So that's kind of the good news. But as I said, once again, once you get closer and closer towards the coastline, and this is what the actual prediction was before they updated it, they were saying that storm surge could be 2 to 4 feet of storm surge over here on the northern side of Cape Cod. So that's kind of interesting to see. But I want to show you guys the models here. I want to show you guys how things kind of move about. And we're going to do with a HAFS A, because the HAFS A has been doing phenomenal this season with tropical systems, honestly. And I'm going to kind of show you guys what I mean by this. So here's the tropical system in question. Here's Lee. You can see, once again, it is spiraling in a counterclockwise fashion. My EpicPen, for whatever reason, refuses to function right now, so it's kind of like almost jittery in a way. I'm actually and then turning it back on, because it probably will be better. And yeah, once again, there's not really going to be as much of a rain issue with this system. This system is expected to be post-tropical once it gets really close to the coastline, which means rain is going to just not be a thing. Yeah, this is kind of jittery on purpose. My computer takes a little bit to kind of register. It'll fix itself. Don't worry about it. Chaya, what's up? Nice to see you. There we go. Hopefully, give it a second, and Epic Pen will hopefully load here. There we go. A lot better. I just got to move it to the side. There we go. Perfect. It is good now. Were you impacted by those fires, by the way, Chaya? And mahalo. But let's take a look at the models here. Let's show you guys what I mean by this. Because as I said, rain's not going to be as much of an issue with this. Now it's going to be a little bit more of the storm surge. And so, look at this. This is Friday morning. This is tomorrow morning. A lot of rain around it. We're talking Saturday morning now. Look at how the rain just absolutely just diminishes completely. And just because the rain diminishes doesn't mean that, you know, this thing still can't be impactful, although it's not going to be as impactful as one would think it would be. So realistically speaking, this is more just for the people that are along the coastline, for the people that are along Nova Scotia, for the people that are in New England up into Maine. You guys are going to have to watch out if you're in a flood-prone area. So if you're along the coastline and your residence is very close to the water, it might be a good idea for you to vacate the area for about 36, 48 hours and then come back to it. But that is still one of those things that we have to continue to consider, because a lot of these isobars are still pretty tight and compact. And I'll show you that the winds are actually still pretty decent with this. You know, this does weaken, fortunately, as it gets closer and closer to land. And I'll show you guys here. This is the initialized part with the halves A. We got some, you know, pretty... Actually, can I show... No, I can't, unfortunately. That would be pretty cool if I could, like, show you guys specifically what it says. But I don't think it can. Which kind of sucks. So you guys are just gonna have to use the legend on the left-hand side to really help out with that. But you can see basically everywhere that is in this purple is hurricane force winds, sustained winds at that. We go here from Thursday, which you can see at the top part of your screen. Thursday, going to Friday, still a pretty sustained storm. Becomes larger, which is exactly what usually these tropical systems do when they actually weaken. And then as you can see, once we get very close to the coastline, you can see there's a lot of flow that's pushing up into Nova Scotia. And we're talking about 45 to 50 knot wind speeds, which is about 55, 60 mile per hour winds that are going to be constantly pushing a lot of this tide, a lot of the water, a lot of the ocean up further and further inland. So that's kind of the reason why I'm saying if you're in Nova Scotia, you guys are probably going to be hit by this a lot more. And if you guys remember my Idalia forecasts and stuff like that before it made landfall in Florida, I mentioned that if you're on the side, the right side of where it makes landfall, and what I mean by the right side, I mean the side that's kind of positioned on its right. So Idalia was making landfall. If you can imagine, like, this is Florida for a second, right? This is a terrible drawing of Florida, but, you know, there's Florida. Idalia made landfall right here, and on the right side of where it made landfall was where the worst impacts were. Well, Lee is moving from south to north, so it makes landfall right here, and to the right of it, which is in this portion of Nova Scotia, is where the worst impacts are going to be because of the storm surge. And remember, tropical systems are as bad as they are because of flooding. It doesn't have to be just because of rain. It also is because of the storm surge. And this is, once again, the reason why this system is going to still be a threat for people of Nova Scotia, regardless of what happens. So, once again, Nova Scotia, if you're in a flood-prone area, something that you are going to want to watch out for. But other than that, I also want you guys to kind of pay attention here real quickly. And I wish I can actually I can zoom out. This is perfect. Watch this here, guys. All right, so here's a zoomed out image of Lee. This is from a different model called the HWRF Parent. And the Parent is basically one of the older models. So like a older version of the HWRF, but it's also super zoomed out. And for those of you who are just tuning in, we are talking about Hurricane Lee approaching the northeastern United States and eastern Canada. I talked about how storm surge, as this thing moves along, the winds are going to be blowing the surge into Nova Scotia. But I also want to show you guys, remember, the system spins counterclockwise, spins just like that. So when this thing starts to spin back from north to south on the northwestern side, a lot of the wind is also going to be pushing into that northern side of Cape Cod, which is also going to amplify the storm surge over there. So areas that are over into those general vicinities are also going to want to watch. And honestly, definitely should. I think you guys definitely should watch out as that thing continues to move about. So something to, continue to monitor. But as for right now, of course, it does look like Nova Scotia is going to be the ones that are going to want to watch out for this the most. Now, as for whether or not I'm going to stream this, I probably will. I probably will be live because, once again, you guys know me. I want to make sure that the folks that are both in the United States and Canada are secure. I want to make sure that everyone is all right. So if you know any people that are over in Yarmouth, as well as Halifax, over into portions of Nova Scotia, maybe even the portions of eastern Maine, like Bar Harbor, feel free to come along. I probably will be live sometime in the late morning to early afternoon on Saturday. And then once that happens, we're going to try and get live footage of cameras that are along the coastline. We're going to have all sorts of weather stations, all sorts of cool things that are going to actually help us figure out what's going on with this storm. So feel free to stick around if you guys want to, because we're going to try and provide you guys with as many services as you possibly can get. And, hopefully they can help you guys or at least assist you guys in some decision making. So that's cool. I want to take a look as I stutter all over the place because, that's how my camera, my computer is just functioning today. So once again, if you are just tuning in here right now, we're talking about current Hurricane Lee. Hurricane Lee, as of this moment right now, is a 85 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane. It is expected to make landfall over into portions of southern Nova Scotia by sometime around Saturday afternoon. And we are probably going to be live for the landfall to try and make sure that any sort of emergency information gets out to people who may need it. And of course, we're also going to be reacting to it just to kind of see what exactly happens and whatnot. They have sent planes into this thing. They are trying to figure out specifically what's going on. They sent earlier an upper air reconnaissance plane, which basically flew in and around the tropical cyclone from the upper levels of the atmosphere, and it dropped a lot of probes to try and see what type of environment it's dealing with. And right now they sent the Air Force into it to try and figure out what exactly is happening inside the storm from a lower level reconnaissance. So what you can do is you can figure out what's happening above it and then try and figure out what's happening in all levels of the atmosphere. And then for planes that just want to figure out what's happening at the surface, which they can do it a lot more frequently and try, to figure out its actual strength more often. They actually make more passes into the eye and stuff like that. So right now, it's currently doing all sorts of fun things at the moment. It is racing off to the north, but I want to kind of show you guys the little graphic that we have here. And of course, if my computer can handle it, I'll show you guys the actual interactive map of what the hurricane hunters did to get into the system. But a lot of these purple and pink little wind barbs down here indicate a lot of hurricane force winds that are aloft, which more than likely means that we have a lot of activity up top that's going to try and force its way down to the bottom. The problem is that this thing is weakening, which means that this thing is also expanding its wind field more and more. And when it does that, these winds aloft actually start to kind of disperse and become weaker and weaker. So if this thing was a little bit more tightly compacted, if we were able to see, if you guys could tell, all these yellows and greens, as well as the blues and the whites that are in the middle, if this was confined into one little area, kind of like this, then we probably would be seeing a lot more consistent purples even on the other side, and we probably would be seeing a stronger tropical cyclone. But what's actually happening is all of the main powerful winds are on that southeastern side, and not really a whole lot of it is up on the northwestern side, which means this thing is very lopsided. And when it's lopsided, then you start to have a little bit of issues with its actual structure. And because of that, this tropical system as of right now does not look healthy at all. So, though it is currently racing off towards the north, it is just doing not a whole lot. And I'll show you guys what I mean by getting onto the satellite imagery, because I think you guys can also tell that it's not doing a whole lot by looking at what the satellite is saying. And just by looking at this right now, I mean, this does not... I mean, I know a lot of you guys found me from my Idalia forecasts and my live analysis over there. Idalia across the board had all sorts of reds, some blacks, some whites, even some pinks and stuff like that. I mean, we could barely find any oranges and reds on here. This thing is starting to become less and less tropical by the day, and it's becoming more and more of just a wind maker. So the good news is that we're not expecting anything major, not anything super significant, which is amazing. We don't want that to happen. But the bad news is that regardless, this could still probably be treated something similar to a nor'easter, even though it's not a nor'easter, right? So it's similar impacts to what a nor'easter would bring, but it's not a nor'easter because it's coming from a different area, and it's not moving it's not really moving northeast. It's moving south to north. The other thing that's really interesting here is you can kind of see here is Bermuda. So Bermuda is off the coast here, and Bermuda is also getting a lot of tropical storm force winds, which means Bermuda is getting hammered by a lot of wind, and a lot of these little pop-up little blues and stuff like that, these are also little individual storms that could potentially be tornadic. We could have a couple water spouts that could be associated with some of these storms. So if you are watching from Bermuda, just on the off chance, who knows who could be in my chat, of course. But if you're watching from, Bermuda on the off chance, there you go. Until this storm really does pass by, you guys aren't really quite done with this thing until you really, see conditions start to get better for you. So that is the good news with that. Just a reminder here for everyone, this is a live stream for Hurricane Lee. We're also going to be talking about some other things that I wanted to mention. And of course, I'm going to be making a video tomorrow because we will be live talking about the landfall of Hurricane Lee, although it will be at that point Tropical Storm Lee or Post-Tropical Storm Lee. And that'll be making landfall over near Nova Scotia and Maine on Saturday around noon. But I will be uploading a video tomorrow. It will be talking about Lee, of course. And then it'll also be talking about severe weather potentially coming back next week, which is kind of interesting for me because you know how I am. I like all sorts of severe weather. I like all sorts of tropical weather. But when you talk about the same thing for a few weeks, especially if it's the same storm, you kind of get a little bored of it. You kind of just like, man, I don't want to talk about this thing anymore. Can this thing just, get off the books? Can this thing just deteriorate already? And can we find something new to talk about, whether it's good or bad, Is it going to be nicer? Is the weather going to be nicer? Are we going to be able to have nice summer conditions, or is fall going to be nice? Or are we going to have a plentiful winter or whatever? Instead, we're talking about more severe weather, which is going to be really interesting. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But yeah, as I said, the system is now an 85 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane. And it is at a pressure of 956 millibars. It's also a very, very large storm. And actually, I want to talk about that before we get into the severe weather, as I start to stutter and lose frames again, of course. Because why not? But take a look at this. Take a look at this here real quickly, chat. You see this? This is a history of the winds that came with Lee up until this point. So this is when it started becoming a tropical storm. Then it became a hurricane. And then look at how large the wind field actually expanded. Like, look at how large that wind field actually is. And that is because this storm has weakened slowly but surely on its curl towards the north, which is really kind of something really interesting to kind of look at. You know, we're just like, man, this thing is as huge of a storm as it is. It's one of the largest storms from what I've heard in recorded history. One of the. I'm not sure about the largest storm, though. All right, I want to talk about the future here with tropical weather. We'll talk about the future with tropical weather here real quickly because we're still on that same topic. And I mentioned in the earlier video, a few days ago, something like that, there was the potential for another storm to move on through. And that is exactly the case. If we go back over here to the National Hurricane Center, go to our 7-day graphical outlook as my computer starts to stutter again. Yeah, I am, a lot of my equipment is just not doing really well right now. It kind of represents how I feel inside right now because I'm just super tired. Super tired, but it is what it is. I mentioned in my last video that there is another storm. Wow, yeah, I am stuttering all over the place. I'm watching myself right now and it's just... But there's another storm that's going to be coming on through. It's going to try and take a similar path to Lee. The good news for the mainland United States is that this is probably going to stay out to sea, but this also means that Bermuda will definitely need to watch out for the potential of some tropical activity. We also have, I think this is Margot or Margan. I think this is Margot, though. I think that's how that's pronounced. Margot is probably going to just sit in the same area for a while. And it will actually try to spin back out and try to head over to the United Kingdom. So folks that are over there might also need to watch out for that too. But let's take a look at the models. Let's see what's going to be going on with this thing. And as this moves about, you can see there's our new tropical system that's going to be forming here over the next 2 days. Forms right here, pretty far away from the Lesser Antilles. We have a bit of a high pressure system here, and remember, high pressure systems are the opposite of low pressure systems, which means they spin clockwise, just like this. And they also steer tropical systems in certain directions. So this is where the high pressure system is, but what's also happening here is that we also have a trough that's digging on through here in the eastern United States, which is actually going to push this high further and further east. And within a couple of days, this high is actually going to be on the eastern side of this system, and it's going to actually curl a lot sooner than, you know, some doomcasters and stuff may say. So watch this. Trough moves on through. There's your storms. There's your high pressure system. It's a little hard to see, but it's getting squeezed in between the two tropical systems right here. And I'm actually going to move it so that you guys can actually see it a little teeny bit better. There you go. So there's low pressure system number 1, low pressure system number 2. Here's your high pressure system that's starting to move further and further east. And once it becomes east of this system right here that's northeast of the Antilles, the Lesser Antilles, it's going to start to curl north. And watch, that's exactly what happens. This thing curls north. This high pressure system becomes really dominant. And because of that, this thing just really just stays out to sea and becomes a fish maker. So that's good. That is pretty good there. But the other thing that I also wanted to mention once again is that Margot still is going to have to watch out. And then any of the remnants from Lee is actually going to be heading off into that area. So there's going to be a lot of windstorms that are heading off towards the UK here. Over the next few weeks. It's kind of just that time of year. But once again, this system that is going to be forming here over the next couple of days, what is this going to be named? Someone is saying, what about future Nigel? Is that what it's going to be called if it does become a storm? 2023 hurricane names. Yeah, that'll be Nigel. So once again, Nigel will just kind of sit out in the middle of the water. It won't really be that big of a threat, which is pretty good. Weather Channel says it's 345 miles wide. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. That thing is huge. All right. We talked about the tropical stuff. So once again, Hurricane Lee is expected to make landfall sometime around Saturday at noon. We're probably going to be live for the landfall. As a matter of fact, we will be live for the landfall there of what will be at that point Tropical Storm Lee. So if you guys would like to stick around, watch what happens as it makes landfall during the day, feel free to subscribe, turn on notifications. We're going to have a video to update everyone tomorrow as well on what's going to be going on in the future. And we also have, what we're going to be talking about is severe weather next week. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. We're going to be talking about Lee tomorrow as well as what could be future Nigel. But I want to talk about the fact that we have some severe weather on the horizon, ladies and gentlemen. And it's been, what, a long time coming. But it's happening. It is happening. I have no idea why my thing is like this. Log in. Please. Thank you. Wow. I have no idea why it was like that. Anyways. Oh, I know why. I understand why. There we go. My house is falling apart around me. So if you hear any weird noises in the background, that's definitely my house. All right, there we go. Got all that set up. So now, let's kind of take a look at how things move about. So let's go with our 500 millibar wind shear. 500 millibar wind shear is right here. And this basically kind of shows us where our jet stream is flowing. This is where a lot of our wind shear is at. Wind shear comes from the jet stream, of course. And our current jet stream is all the way up here in Canada. If my Epic Pen wants to load. There we go. But that's kind of the general flow of the jet stream right now. It's just flowing just like that. We also have our subtropical jet that's kind of moving through the southern portions of the United States. That's not really doing too much. But what's going to happen here pretty soon is by the mid parts of next week, we're actually going to have this this low pressure system off the coast of California start to move further and further inland. And this combining with a little bit of a trough that's going to be moving over the Pacific Northwest is going to combine to create the potential for severe weather sometime here. Watch this. We have a big low pressure system that starts to merge with this other low pressure system. And this is going to create a lot of wind shear here for Thursday, which is going to be, in my opinion, day one of the severe weather window of opportunity, if you will. So day one is going to be Thursday, next Thursday on the 21st. And then day two is going to be Friday, the 22nd. You can see, once again, big low pressure system here with a lot of wind shear that's going to be pushing across. We also have another low that's going to be moving through the upper Midwest. So that's going to be something else to kind of note. And then Saturday, you can see Saturday afternoon. Now, this is going to be really interesting. Depending upon if the environment can recover quick enough, next Saturday, if this ends up becoming the same, we could be talking about a little bit of a stronger severe weather event. Because usually when the low pressure system actually starts to get involved in the severe weather event, in close proximity to where the actual thunderstorms are at, it starts to amplify vorticity. And vorticity is, especially if you can get the right amount or the correct vorticity, if you will, because there's multiple versions or there's differences in what type of vorticity some environments can bring. If you have the correct vorticity brought into this environment, we could be talking about a regional tornado event that could occur. So at some point from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, give or take a day. All right. It could happen as early as the 20th, could happen as late as the 24th, but at some point within that time period is when we can anticipate the potential for severe weather in there. And then we also could potentially see some severe weather the next day on the 24th as well. That low will continue to sit around there, and then it'll just probably be minuscule heading into that Monday as well. But once again, there is an opportunity for severe weather to exist throughout portions of the Central Plains. And because of that, that is something we're going to have to watch out for. Of course, I'll get a little bit more in depth with what specifically we need to watch out for this thing to happen. Of course, stuff to not happen as well. But severe weather is definitely possible on the horizon for portions of the central United States, which means that if you know anyone that lives in those areas, we're talking Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, the Dakotas, stuff like that. You can get into the Midwest and the Ozarks if you want to. They are definitely going to want to watch out for the threat of severe weather that is going to be possible heading into the middle and the later stages of next week. All right, I think this should be a good stage for us to start answering questions. By the way, I got myself a new chair. I got rid of the red one. Actually, the red one's right there. I'm going to have to take that downstairs and to the garbage because tonight's garbage night, and I take the garbage out every Thursday night. I'm going to have to take that chair out because it is old and raggedy. It is torn to shreds, and yeah, it's broken. So I got myself a new chair. It's a white one. It's pretty comfortable. It didn't have the lumbar support, so I stole that from my old chair. Fortunately, that was the one thing that wasn't broken from my last chair. So now I'm a little bit more comfortable. I'm able to kind of just do things. So. Are you talking about East Texas or just West Texas? We're talking about anywhere Texas right now because we're so far away to the point to where we can't just pinpoint specifics. This is kind of just the general area, right? Us just kind of saying, hey, it could happen in this area at some point in the latter stages of next week. So something like that. What's up, Sharon? Nice to see you. Evening, James. Next hurricane, get yourself a cooler to keep near your desk. Remember, I was starving during Adalia. That was like in the that was the last stream. The last stream I had, I came home. I had something to eat that day, but I mean, I didn't really like prepare myself ahead of time because, to be fair, I was live streaming. I had 3 different live streams. I had the one the previous night that started at like 6:30 and it ended at like 11:30 or 11. Then I went to bed for like 4 hours. I got up, live streamed from like 4:30 to like 11. Went to my doctor's appointment, got something to eat on my way over there. Came back, took an hour nap, and then went back to live streaming again. So I really didn't, do a whole lot with that. How am I doing? My channel family cares about me and my well-being. So on a mental health note, I'm doing a lot better than at this stage last week. Because if you guys remember what happened last week, I was an emotional wreck, and I don't cry. I don't do that. I don't like to show my emotions a whole lot. I try to. I try to get a grip of myself. I know sometimes it's just healthy to kind of let it out sometimes. Right now I'm doing really well. I'm trying to focus on stuff that's important to me. It's fortunate, I'm really fortunate that stuff is starting to get really busy for me right now. Like I have to go coach my hockey team 3 times a week, and that's not including some of the games that can be added in every now and then. So it's been pretty nice. It's been pretty nice. What about the Four Corners area? The Four Corners area, I'm assuming, is that Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico area. You guys might be a little bit too far west. I mean, there could be kind of like monsoonal activity is possible. Maybe some wind and stuff like that, but it's not really too much. I need a snack bar? Yeah, you're telling me. I need something. Oh, I know I can't keep it in with me forever. I know I can't keep my emotions bottled up. But I think it makes me a stronger person to try and control myself with any emotion that I have. Anger, sadness, happiness in some instances. Yeah, I think that's just a part of me that wants to mature in that stage. So something like that. Something like that. Yeah, I didn't want to leave because of the tornadoes. I definitely did not. Import aircraft reconnaissance in Google Earth. How do I do it? I still can't remember. I haven't really taken time out of my life to figure that out. My apologies. It's been like a few years. If you go to if you just search up on Google, just aircraft reconnaissance KML file. You should be able to download it somewhere and then search on YouTube how to import a KML file onto Google Earth Pro. You should be alright. But I can't remember, honestly. Is Lee going to bother you in North Carolina? It might with some rip currents, but other than that, not really. Impacts for Yarmouth, Nova Scotia? Sorry if it's too much to ask. No, it's fine. Storm surge. Realistically speaking, it's not really going to be as much of a rain threat. If anything, it's going to be pretty minimal. The big thing is the wind and then the storm surge. If it makes landfall on top of you guys, then of course it's going to be really windy, but it's not going to be as much of a flooding thing. If the center of Lee moves a little bit further towards the west, and of course we're going to be live during that time frame on the around noon on Saturday, so you can obviously come back if you want to. But if it ends up moving a little bit further towards the west and makes landfall near the Bay of Fundy, right, then storm surge is going to be a little bit more of an issue for areas that are, flood-prone areas, more or less. So my advice is for the people that are along the coastline for them to move a little bit further inland. It probably would be a good idea. Because the winds of Lee is going to actually push the surge further and further inland. And I'll show you guys what I mean by that here with this run of the half A. So here you go. This is where it starts to move up. And these low pressure systems spin in a counterclockwise fashion. And so along these isobars, these little black circles, stuff like that. This is where you can kind of assume where the winds are going towards, right? And you can see a lot of this wind kind of move further and further in. So the reason why I'm saying if this was a little bit further over here to the left, then these winds would be a little bit further head on into like Yarmouth and stuff like that. But if it, hits you guys directly on, then it might not be as much storm surge until this thing starts to pass you guys in the late afternoon and the early evening. Kind of see what I mean? Wind's starting to come out from the side and starts to push on through that way. So realistically speaking, not that much of a rain threat. You can see what it was before. You can see all the rain right now. that's ongoing with it. And then as it gets closer and closer towards the coastline, those greens, those reds, those yellows aren't as consistent. They aren't as widespread. And because of that, system isn't really as tropical as it would be. So, yep, that's kind of what we got from Lee. What effect will Lee have on Metro New York City? Realistically speaking, it'll have minimal impacts, but some of the winds could impact the sound and could try and force the water back up towards the western side of the sound. So aerial flooding is definitely possible. If I pull up another model to kind of show you guys what I mean by this. So I'll go back in time. And I'll show you guys that at some stage here on Friday night and a Saturday morning, some of these winds are going to be channeled inside the sound, and they're going to actually push water onto the northern side of Long Island, which will also include that eastern side of NYC. So some aerial flooding is possible, especially into the overnight hours. But once this thing kind of passes you guys and it starts to get towards midday on Saturday, we're talking like noon, things should start to kind of clear out for you guys in New York City. So you guys should be okay. Will Lee have any effect on storm surge in Maryland? You live on the water, have a beach out front, it's on the canal. So fortunately, it's pretty far, you know, Chesapeake Bay is pretty far west from the system. So the winds aren't just really as impactful as they would be if you were, say, on Long Island. Do I think there will be heavy rain in central Massachusetts? I think it's possible, but I don't think it'll be, it'll be very frequent. Here's the total accumulated precipitation, and if there was any precipitation, which realistically speaking, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of, I think it'll be heavy for a short, brief stint, and yeah, it's just once the further north it goes, the less and less it'll become tropical wise. It really won't be as much of a rainmaker more than anything. It'll be a wind maker. And the winds won't be super strong unless if you're closer to the center. And this thing is pretty far away from the center, pretty far away from Cape Cod. It still will impact the flow. It still will impact storm surge, which is, the reason why there is still the threat for storm surge here across some of these areas. Once again, we're expecting about 1 to 3 feet of storm surge possible within any of these highlighted blue areas. So that's kind of the reason why I'm like, well, if you're in a flood-prone area, if your house is legit right next to the water, it might be a good idea for you to kind of just stay away from that for a whole day, maybe even 2. And this is only for the United States. Unfortunately, I don't have my hands on any sort of graphics that are for Canada. But for the areas that are in Nova Scotia, this is going to be even higher. We're probably talking about 3 to 5 feet of storm surge possible. So that's kind of the reason why I'm like, Nova Scotia is really going to want to watch out. Oh, that's nice. That's fantastic. Will the winds be high in southern Massachusetts? I mean, if you're in the Cape Cod areas, I think it could get pretty high. I think we could see some stronger wind gusts. You know what? I've got an idea. Pardon me for a second here, chat. Yeah, that might be a good idea. Go to here. Go to the wind gusts. Watch this here. Here's your wind gusts as this moves about. So if you're on Cape Cod, realistically speaking, your wind gusts could probably even be as high as 60 miles per hour, maybe 65 miles per hour if you're over near Provincetown, Barnstable and stuff like that. The further west you go, so realistically speaking, if you're like west of 95, the less and less impactful it actually will be, which is good news, obviously. Do wind gusts here for areas of northern New England. You can kind of see, once again, there's some pretty strong wind gusts here. Even as you get into like New Brunswick, we're talking like Fredericton, and some wind gusts could be in upwards of about 50 miles per hour, which is pretty gnarly. And look at a lot of this along the coastline here of Maine. Maybe even some hurricane force wind gusts possible. Maybe some hurricane force wind gusts that could be over near that Bar Harbor area and Ellsworth. So very, very interesting. When do I think the winds will start in Houlton, Maine in speed? Let me take a look. I'm not too familiar with Maine's geography. Oh, Houlton's up there. It'll start on Saturday morning, like very early. We're talking like 2 to 3 a.m. And it'll start to really pick up, and then it'll go back down 24 hours from then. So around midnight from well, no. Actually, my apologies. It'll start to really go down Sunday morning. It doesn't look like it, Connor. It looks like it'll be a lot weaker than Sandy, which is the good news. It's also going to be a lot further out to sea. Any impacts from Central PA to Baltimore? Not really. I mean, I live in South Central PA. So, I mean, if I was impacting stuff, I probably would be super excited about it. I'm not entirely excited about it. It's kind of just sitting over there. It's doing its own thing. And, yeah, it's pretty far out away. We may not even see a whole lot directly from this. We might see other storms move through. But, stuff from Lee? No. No, not really. All right, is there any other questions? I don't really want to hold you guys up too long because realistically speaking, there isn't too much stuff for us to talk about, and we're going to make a video tomorrow in the evening for you guys to watch. And we're also going to once again be live on late Saturday morning into early Saturday afternoon. I don't exactly have a time as to when, to be honest with you. And we may not even be live for super long. Might be for like 4 to 5 hours. But we want to make sure that we want to be live for when this thing starts to make landfall. Because we kind of want to show you guys once again, what are the impacts? And then we can use those impacts to try and show people in the future, hey, this is what happened the last time with this scale of a storm. Use this information to the best of your ability to make decisions, you know? So That's what we want to try and do. But I wanted to get you guys something tonight. I wanted to make sure that you guys got something because honestly, when I was trying to make a video today, I was just all over the place. I was tired and I was just lacking creativity. And I really was losing my mind a little bit. But it is what it is, huh? It is what it is. All right, if there aren't any other questions, then I think we should be good for the night. It's almost a full hour stream, almost. But, you know, I wanted to make sure, once again, that you guys got information. You guys got an idea as to what's going on. Make sure you guys subscribe because I'm going to be uploading a video making kind of a final update before this thing really starts to kind of get into our general area. And once again, it's going to impact New England, but it isn't going to be super significant to New England unless if you're along the coastline. If you're along the coastline, then aerial flooding is possible. If you're along Nova Scotia, then you guys should definitely stay away from flood-prone areas, and that includes the coastline. So, if you guys are in that general vicinity, please take that seriously, of course. We're going to have a video tomorrow talking about Lee. It's going to be talking about potentially future tropical cyclone Nigel, where that could probably be heading off. That will probably become a hurricane, honestly. Probably will become a hurricane. And then we're going to be talking about how severe weather probably will make a return to the United States. That could include the threat of strong damaging winds, large hail, the threat for tornadoes, all possible starting the middle of next week all the way towards the end of next week. So that'll be pretty cool. Other than that, please stay safe, everyone. Enjoy Thursday Night Football if you're watching that. I probably will watch that, and I will watch my Orioles try and defend a division lead against the Tampa Bay Rays, because I am an Orioles fan. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, hit that thumbs up button down below as well. All sorts of cool things. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. So peace out, everyone.